Alright, so the intention of this video is to show you the difference between model and paper space and give you some ideas on how to use those tools to your advantage. I've shown you how to plot from model space before in some of my other videos. I'm going to try to explain how to plot from paper space in this particular case. If you don't have these tabs, model and layout, you need to right click down here in the bar someplace and find the, I can't remember which exactly one it is, but they want you need to enable or show the model tabs. That's really important. Otherwise you won't see, or it's important for me, otherwise I can't switch back and forth and I'm not sure where I'm at. So I have a model space. Everything in model space should be close to 1-to-1 in most cases. When you're utilizing paper space, typically everything in model space is 1-to-1. So when you switch over to the layout, this is now your layout space. Okay, so in my particular case, my layout space is also set up with a black background. If yours is not set up with a black background, it's okay, don't freak out, it's not the end of the world. It's gonna look a little bit different. It's probably gonna show you a sheet of paper with a white background. It would take me a few minutes to figure out how to get back to where it is, so I'm just gonna go ahead and leave it. But basically what we're going to do is this is a layout space is a snapshot of our model space. The reason we do layouts is for a couple of different reasons. We do layouts because we need to see several different sheets, like say on a set of plans, we have an engineering set of plans, we need to have several different sheets. We'll have several different layouts to do that. So we'll see different snapshots of our different areas. The other reason we can use layouts is because layouts require viewports, and you can set up a viewport to show different information from one drawing to another. In other words, let's pretend that I have a site and I'm doing all my engineering design in one drawing, but I need to have one drawing that shows utilities and I need to have another drawing that shows only the concrete and flat work. I can have those set up and turn on and off different layers in different viewports so that when I plot one layout or one paper space, that it will only show the concrete layout layers, whereas in another layout or paper space it'll show all the utilities. So that's another reason that we use paper space versus model space. Again, you can always plot from model space. I'm just going to show you how I would plot from model space. It's pretty easy. What I try to do is I try to determine what scale I'm going to be setting up my paper space at anyways, and then I draw a box that envelopes that area. So then when I go to layout and I select a viewport, that it's exactly the same size. So let me go through that here for a minute. Let's pretend in this particular case I'm going to measure some distances here and find out how large my drawing is. My drawing is only 154 by about 235, so I can probably fit this on an 8.5 by 11, but I need to calculate for a minute. I need to calculate what scale this is going to work at. Okay, so I went and changed the scale of my drawing just a little bit, just for the purposes of this. Basically what I'm going to try to do is do a 1-to-10 scale. So by doing that, I'm going to start by creating a box, and I'm going to click in this upper right corner here, and I'm going to figure out what the dimensions are. So I'm going to go D for dimensions. So the length in this particular case is actually our left to right distance, or east to west distance in this particular case. So 11 times 10 gives me 0. You need to make it 110. Come on. Okay, and then we're going to specify the width. So in this case, we're going to go 8.5, so that would be an 85. So this is now the size of my box. You can see it's a little too small, so I'm going to move up to a 1-to-20. So I'm going to do the same process again. Basically, I'm trying to create a box that shows the extents of my particular project. Okay, so a 1-to-20 scale is going to work out very nicely for me. You can see it has all my information on here that I need, and I can now I can create a viewport based on this. Okay, so now I can create my viewport to show the exact page size that I want. So this is again at a 1-to-20 scale. So I'm going to type in -view, and then it's going to ask me for some options. I'm going to say I want to do a window. I'm going to enter a name for it. In this particular case, pick a name that works for you. If I was doing multiple viewports, I would pick something more specific, like west region or northwest quarter or something like that. In this particular case, I'm just going to call it map. Then it's going to ask me for the top corner and the bottom corner. So now I have my viewport created. Now I'm going to jump over to the layout space and I'm going to type in Viewports. And then it's going to give me this window right here. I'm going to drop down here to this change view to, and from current I'm going to change it to map, and I'm going to say F for fit. Okay. So now this is the window that I have. When you fit it like that, it just takes whatever paper size you happen to be using and it fits to that particular paper size. So that's one way of doing it. Now when I select this viewport, if you click on it here and you look at its properties, it's a viewport, and you can also see what the scale is. It's right now it's a custom scale. So we don't want to do that. We want to actually make it a scale that's going to work for us. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go right click on this layout tab. I'm going to close the properties. I'm going to right click on the layout tab, and we're going to say page setup manager. And we're going to modify this to an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Okay, so we're going to 8.5 by 11. And I'm going to select a particular printer for it. If you don't have a printer to select, always select the DWG to PDF. That's always the easiest. So 8.5 by 11, and we're just going to do display for right now, and we're going to hit OK. I'm going to select a specific plot style for me, and I'm going to just hit OK. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a box inside here. I'm going to click here and I'm going to make it the dimensions of my paper. So 8.5. Oops, sorry, I have to do dimensions D. Here we go, 8.5. Well, let's start with 11. 11, 8.5. There we go. All right, so now this is the size of my paper because I'm going to use the units in my paper space as inches. If that makes sense. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do viewports. And we're going to select that map, click OK, and then we're going to select this upper corner here, and we're going to select the lower corner there, say OK, regen. Now I have a viewport here. You can look and see it's a viewport, and you can see that the standard scale is 1 to 20. Okay? So, and if you click on the viewport, have it selected, and you see down at the bottom, it also gives you the viewport scale right there as well. Now, this little lock and unlock viewport, this is really, really important. A lot of times what you'll do is you'll open a viewport by accident in Paperspace. If you double click inside that viewport, you notice that this button down at the bottom goes from model to Paperspace, or it goes from Paperspace to model space. The way to get out of that model space is to click on that button again, and it takes you back to paper. The problem is, unless you have this viewport locked, you can actually pan around and scale in and out in here, zoom in and out. That's bad. You don't want to do that because it deteriorates the quality of your viewport. In other words, you had it at a 1 to 20 scale. If you zoom in and out, now it's at some weird scale. If you pan around, it's not showing the area you want. So a lot of times what I will do, once I decide that this is actually the viewport I'd like, I'll go down here and I will lock that viewport. Now I'm going to go back to this plot, the page layout here, page setup manager. I'm going to modify this one, and then I'm going to do actually a window. And I'm going to do the window from here to there, and I'm going to center that plot. I'm going to do it as a porch. No, sorry, landscape. That's what I wanted. You notice that right now it's fit to paper is checked. I'm actually going to set this to 1 to 1. Okay. So now when I take a preview of it, you can see that it's plotting the extents of what I want. It doesn't have a border on it right now. That's something you can change in the future if you'd like to. But I'm just trying to give you guys the idea on how to set up a paper space. So right now this viewport is locked at 1 to 20. Now you can get really creative with this. A lot of times what I will do is I will not actually have my viewport scaled. My viewport will be 1 inch equals 1 foot, or 1 to 1. So what you do then is, instead of modifying the viewport, the viewport scale will actually be at 1 to 1. What you do is you modify your page setup manager. You modify it here so that it's not a 1 inch equals 1 foot. You modify it to 1 inch equals whatever the units of your drawing. So that's something that's a little bit more advanced. If you want to play around with that, you can, but that's another way of doing it. So this is how to set up a viewport and modify it. You can always just delete your viewport and then start over if you need to. I don't generally recommend that. What I do recommend is bring your viewport in again, move it off to the side, and then in the page setup manager, you can modify this and select a different window, and that usually works out better. That way you don't lose any viewport settings you may have. So that concludes the video on how to do a viewport.